We've seen the rumors for months, got our hands on just a few weeks ago, and now we're bringing you the review of the LG G7 Think.
Wait, stop. It's pronounced ThinQ.
What?
Yes.
Seriously?
Yes.
But LG Electronics calls their appliances SmartThink? They even said something in a press release last week.
I don't know. Just go with it.
Okie dokie.
Alright, so whatever way we're pronouncing the name this month, LG's latest is packing everything we expect from a 2018 flagship, including the unfortunate notch trend that's quickly developed in the industry. What makes the G7 ThinQ unique and good? The boombox speaker, an ultra-bright display, and a new build that's taller and more narrow. Spec-wise, the G7 starts with the Snapdragon 845, which is a significant upgrade from the Snapdragon 821 inside last year's G6, and drops in a comfortable 64 gigs of internal storage, but curiously keeps at 4 gigs of RAM and only a 3000 mAh battery for most models. LG is offering a 6 gig of RAM version with 128 gigs of internal storage in some regions, but their pricing structure makes it hard to know where and for how much. For instance, you'll be able to pick up the G7 in Europe for around 850 euros, but in the US, it's completely carrier dependent for pricing. Availability is sometime in early June, but that's not concrete either. The pricing in your region is going to very much make or break the decision to get the G7, so you have to weigh what's said here against that. On the front is a 6.1-inch Quad HD M+ LCD panel with 19.5 by 9 aspect ratio, including that notch up top. This display is the first ever of its kind on an LG phone, sporting an RGB W pixel striping configuration. That fourth white pixel helps LG increase brightness by allowing the backlight to effectively show through better. This results in quite possibly the best display to use in any outdoor situation, as it can get up to 1000 nits of sustained brightness for a full 3 minutes until it drops the brightness back down a bit. This is done for both heat and battery life concerns, and battery life is definitely a concern, as you'll find out in a bit. The problem with having such a bright LCD display is that black levels are totally obliterated, and you'll note that even the lowest brightness levels create blacks on the screen that are very much gray. Maybe this annoys you, maybe it doesn't, but it's very obvious and does little to hide that notch. Outside of the black levels, however, this is one of the highest quality panels out there, as it provides excellent viewing angles, quality color reproduction, and even has low pixel persistence rates, resulting in a screen that almost never shows any kind of ghosting or trailing, unlike most LCDs in the mobile world. I'm definitely not an LCD fan by any means, as you'll likely know if you've watched a few smartphone reviews on our channel, so this is a big compliment to LG's display division. And now comes the question of the notch. First off, let's discuss the positives. The notch provides an area for the status bar to reside without encroaching on that 18:9 content. Full screen zooming into a video shows this in action, as the video is able to take up the full length of the screen from chin to notch without being cut off by the notch itself, unlike some other phones on the market. It also makes the phone feel like it's got less bezel and therefore more immersive, even though the G7 still has a small chin. On the negative side is how LG handles it and how it affects the screen. There's a bit of haloing around the notch itself, a side effect of having an LCD backlight, but nowhere near as bad as the light bleed from the second screen on the V10 or V20. Then there's of course the verbiage of second screen itself, which LG pulled from the V10 and V20 but didn't actually include any of that functionality here. It almost seems like they were intending to do something else, but maybe it didn't work out. Who knows? Regardless, there's no real way to hide the notch, if that sort of thing bothers you again, as the options present only work in LG apps like the system menu or home screen launcher. All other apps just change the status bar to their primary color and the notch reappears. At least LG kept the floating bar from the V30, which gives quick 2-click access to your 5 favorite apps, contacts, and a few other nifty features that will quickly become invaluable once you get to setting it up. The advantage of being able to drag it everywhere is great, and it feels like we're just waiting for full screen gestures to really be able to take advantage of this display size and type. This new aspect ratio means LG is able to make a taller, more narrow phone than ever before, and the difference is pretty obvious when you hold it up to the V30. While it's basically the same size vertically as that phone, it's much more narrow and therefore quite a bit easier to use with one hand. The centered camera hump on the back means it doesn't wobble as much as phones with an off-center one, and LG has kept the glorious HD vibration motors from the V30, meaning the G7 now joins the V30 as the Android phone with the absolute best vibration motors out there. If you've used a Nintendo Switch, you'll understand just how awesome HD vibration motors can be, as they can deliver a far wider range of vibrations, much more subtle vibrations, and in general ones that have more depth and lend a much higher quality feel to the phone. There's nothing like getting a new phone and feeling the harsh, almost stabbing vibrations of old-style motors. On the side, you'll find the new Google Assistant key, similar to the Bixby key, but with an assistant you'll likely want to actually use. The behavior of this is like a push-to-talk button on a walkie-talkie. Push it and hold to instantly talk to Assistant, and let it go when you're done. I didn't like it at first because this behavior wasn't particularly obvious, and I thought maybe the functionality was buggy. However, once I figured it out, I quickly realized that this way of talking to Assistant is way better than the automatic detection that Google typically has, and it not only allows you to cut the command off if there's lots of background noise that it might inadvertently pick up, but what I think is probably more important is the ability to actually pause and think for a second or two about what you're asking it without Assistant trying to misunderstand a partial command. The only downside is that you have to have the phone unlocked to use it, which is a real bummer, but ultimately isn't that big of a deal since the fingerprint scanner is fast, and there's pretty decent facial recognition that can automatically do it without having to press anything. The phone is a fair bit thicker than the V30 though, which seems a bit odd considering the battery is 300 mAh smaller. The trick isn't to look at the battery or component size though, it's all in the design of the speaker, which on the surface appears to be just an ordinary bottom-firing speaker, but actually resonates back into the chassis. When holding the phone, you'll notice little to no difference from other LG phones in this speaker. Volume is decent, quality is okay, and overall it just seems average at best. The magic happens when you place the phone down on a table or other surface, preferably wood or something that resonates well, and you'll instantly be transported to far-off lands of wonder and mystique. Alright, that's a bit over-exaggerated, but it's crazy good and makes music sound excellent when compared to other phones out there. I'd say video too, because while it does enhance any sound that comes from the phone, you're not likely to huddle over a table and watch a video on a 6-inch screen now, are you? Probably not. Speaking of amazing audio, LG continues to obliterate the audio quality on most other phones through that 3.5mm audio jack, thanks to the Quad DAC, which delivers unbelievable sound quality that's better balanced and has wider audio range than most phones can only dream of. Listening and charging is possible thanks to this port, of course, but if you'd rather go the wireless route, LG's got you covered there with Qi wireless charging support and support for all the Bluetooth codecs you want. Quick Charge 3.0 support is available through the USB Type-C port if you'd rather do that quicker wired solution. Unfortunately, you may find yourself having to use one or all of these charging methods more than you'd like, as the smaller battery, coupled with some sort of gremlin in the OS, seems to be draining battery at the rate equivalent to a Samsung phone. Coming from the V30, this is a huge letdown, and rings of the battery life issues we saw on the G5 just a few years ago. I had a hard time making it to the end of the day most days without needing a slight top-up, which really was difficult coming from the Huawei P20 or Sony Xperia XZ2, which both lasted well into the second day without issue, and sometimes even longer than that if you baby them. Tying into this battery life issue are some weird performance issues system-wide. We covered the performance issues with the cameras in our camera review, and like to defer to that one for any inquiries about camera quality as well, but these issues bleed over into other places on the phone. While the V30 is lightning fast at everything it does, the G7 tends to pause a bit before starting tasks, and consistently seems to want to wait a second before doing what you asked it to. A couple examples are when you're pressing the overview button, it takes maybe a half a second or so for it to actually populate that screen, and there are other examples of this too that you'll find throughout using the phone. And that pretty much wraps up the G7 ThinQ experience. LG has made an incredibly solid device that's great in most respects, but has a few glaring issues that need to be considered before buying. A few of these issues, like performance problems, will likely be fixed with a software update, and it's even possible the camera issues we had will get fixed as well, since they're not present on the V30, but there's not much that can be done about that single bottom-firing speaker's quality in most situations, and battery life issues typically don't get sorted out on phones with updates. If that price comes at a nice point though, most of these issues can be overlooked, as there are plenty of positive points to the phone too. We hope you enjoyed that review and will subscribe to us for regularly updated content. Chat with us on your favorite social media network, and don't forget to check out AndroidHeadlines.com for 24/7 tech news coverage. Thanks for watching, and until next time.